a large part of the article is devoted to, in fact, memory politics in Germany and the vast anti-Semitism machine, which largely targets people who are critical of Israel and, in fact, are often Jewish. This happens to be a description that fits me as well. I am Jewish. I come from a family that includes Holocaust survivors. I grew up in the Soviet Union, very much in the shadow of the Holocaust. That's where the phrase in the headline came from, is from that passage in the article itself. And I am critical of Israel. Now, the part that really offended the Heinrich Böll Foundation and the city of Bremen, and I would imagine some German public, is the part that you read out loud, which is where I make the comparison between the besieged Gaza, so Gaza before October 7th, and a Jewish ghetto in Nazi-occupied Europe. I made that comparison intentionally. It was not what they call here a provocation. It was very much the point of the piece, because I think that the way that memory politics function now in Europe and in the United States, but particularly in Germany, is that their cornerstone is that you can't compare the Holocaust to anything. It is a singular event that stands outside of history. My argument is that in order to learn from history, we have to compare. Like, that actually has to be a constant exercise. We are not better people or smarter people or more educated people than the people who lived 90 years ago. The only thing that makes us different from those people is that in their imagination, the Holocaust didn't yet exist, and in ours it does. We know that it's possible. And the way to prevent it is to be vigilant in the way that Hannah Arendt, in fact, and other Jewish thinkers who survived the Holocaust were vigilant, and there was an entire conversation, especially in the first 2 decades after World War II, in which they really talked about how to recognize the signs of sliding into the darkness. And I think that we need to, and one other thing that I want to say is that our entire framework of international humanitarian law is essentially based, it all comes out of the Holocaust, as does the concept of genocide. And I argue that that framework is based on the assumption that you're always looking at war, at conflict, at violence through the prism of the Holocaust. You always have to be asking the question of whether crimes against humanity, the definitions of which came out of the Holocaust, are occurring. And Israel has waged an incredibly successful campaign at setting its, not only setting the Holocaust outside of history, but setting itself aside from the optics of international humanitarian law, in part by weaponizing the politics of memory and the politics of the Holocaust. I don't know that we can ensure it never again anywhere for anyone, but I think the only way to try to ensure it is to keep knowing that the Holocaust is possible. Keep knowing that it can come out of what Arendt called shallowness. I mean, this was very much her point in Eichmann in Jerusalem, a report on the banality of evil. And by the way, this was a book that got Arendt really ostracized by both the Israeli political mainstream and much of the North American Jewish political mainstream for things that she wrote about the Judenrat, but also for this very framing of the banality of evil. It was misinterpreted as trivializing the Holocaust. But what she was saying is that the most horrible things of which humanity has proven capable can grow out of something that seems like nothing, can grow out of thoughtlessness, can grow out of the failure to see the fate of the other, or the inability to see it. And I interpret that as a call to constant vigilance for failure to see the fate of the other, for doubting the kind of overwhelming consensus that certainly in Israel and in the North American Jewish community appears to back the Israeli onslaught on Gaza. This is the way in which we stumble into our darkest moments.